Hey guys, so today we'll be solving a very interesting question. This question is called regular expression matching, right? Now in this given question, you have been told that there are two strings given to you, input string S and then there is a pattern P. Now what you eventually have is that there is a dot operator and there is a star operator. So what you need to do is that you need to check if using these constraints, can we match the pattern to the given string? If it is true, then we return true, otherwise we return a false. As simple as that, right? But wait, let's read through the constraint. The dot operator, यहाँ पे एक dot operator है, right? So what it says is that it can match with any single character. Let's say that. Let's take this example, right? I'll give you some example. Let's say take example a dot, and this is a pattern, and let's say the string was ab. So this dot can actually represent a b character. So it will eventually become ab, and it matches the given string, right? So this is how one example of the dot is. Now let's take another example of a star. Now A star sees that, let's say the given string was AA and the pattern is something called A star. Now what can happen is that this A star can be, it says that it can match it with a more number, like matches 0 or more of the preceding element, meaning that the preceding element is A over here. So we can have more occurrence of A over here in the given pattern. So pattern can be expanded to AA, or pattern can be also expanded to any n number of a, right? We do not care about it, but we just need the correct one. Like, okay, single a is sufficient to match the given string, so that is all. We'll just match it. Now one of the most good example of this thing is that this one ab, this one ab and dot star. Now read the constraint again. Okay, this is the string and this is the pattern. Now what is given here is that the star will represent any preceding element, right? Let's not forget that. So this dot operator we can represent it multiple times, right? Multiple times. This can be represented one time, two time, three time, and each are like a string. Okay, this is S1, this is S2, this is S3, and these can be any character, A, B, A to Z, and this can be any character, this can be any character. Now, you know that there is only two character here, so we just need a string of length 2 with 2 dots. So eventually this will become 2 dot, and first dot will represent A, second dot will represent B, right? So that is one thing. Okay, now since we have well understood this current question, now I will try to talk that what was my first initial thought process. I thought कि यार चलो we'll start using a 2 pointers. Yep, 2 pointers. Not, I didn't even thought कि DP, backtracking, something. I mean, you must have known that कि there are a lot of things which are, if you go to the solution, there are a lot of ways we can solve this question. But I started with a basic 2 pointers approach. I thought कि यार let's say कि my pointer is, A pointer is here, like initially at the start of the string, and A pointer is here. It's a match, good enough. But let's say there is another A. So somehow I figure that ki I need to represent 2A. I can just try expanding my pattern, right? Just think about it. I'll give you one more example. Let's say that I have a given pattern like this, this pattern, okay? Now in this given pattern, what you can see is that यहाँ पे B is occurring twice. So I thought that, okay, what I can eventually do is that I can count the max occurrence of a particular character and then expand my B. Same I can do for C. Let's say that we completed B over here. We represented B star with 2 B's. Now we are at this character. Now this character, what might happen is that for C character, we can say that C star there is only one C. So C star will only represent one C, right? So for these things, I thought that, okay, we'll start with the 2 pointer approach. And what the initial thought process was that if we keep on expanding, if we count the number of the max occurrence of C or B or any character, we'll just expand the B star to that given character, right? That could have worked. But no, the confusion, the problem comes here actually, right? So if you take this example, it's a very, very good example, right? And in this given example, I like this color. Yeah. And in this given example, what eventually happens is that we need to make sure that this pattern matches this pattern. So my 2 pointers approach will fail because it will interpret that, okay, there is a B star, and how will it work? Okay, let's talk about it. My point was that, okay, I'll count the max number of occurrence of A, and then I print this A star. Correct. Job done. Good enough. Now I move my next pointer here. Now I move my next pointer over here. So this B star will try to match this fourth piece. Done. But my pattern is still left. My pattern is still left. There is still A B star, right? So this is something which cannot be done using a two pointers approach, and that's why we need to take all the possibilities. That introduces all possibilities, because now what you need to do is that you need to consider that this S, or when to represent this S, this B can also has to this B can also play or do not play a role, right? Each characters in this given which has a star can or cannot play a role. Think about it. How? Let me tell you. So in this given question, what you can eventually do is that in B star can be represented with 0, right? And then eventually your A star has to be smart enough, like, okay, it represented by 0. Now this A star, you know that there is A which is further there. So now this A star should be only be expanded by 2, and rest B should be used by this B star, right? This thing is something which can only be done using a dynamic programming, backtracking, or something like that. And because we have to consider all the possibilities, and that's why the dynamic programming approach is used. So, yep, since I have showed you that, okay, why a dynamic programming is required, because anyways, this, again I will repeat, this B star has multiple possibilities, right? There can be a possibility that it cannot be consumed, like it will represent it by 0 or by 1 or by 2. Then we'll check all the possibilities, no? Why to just ignore it? And that's how the DP approach works. So, like any other DP approach, right? Since I've talked about it, I will directly jump to the solution now. So obviously, DP always starts with declaring an n plus 1 and n plus 1 2D vector. Now in that, n represent the string, the length of the string, the original string like this one, and the m represent the pattern over here, right? So for any DP question, what you need to do is that you actually start with a what? You start with the 2D vector, and you start writing the base case. Now the base case is very fun thing to write, right? Because think about it. This side is represented by my string, okay? Because a lot of people, actually even me, I also get confused that, okay, what is x-axis, what is y-axis? So let's not confuse ourselves. So this is pattern. Now consider this point, this empty box. Till this point, I told you this is n plus 1 and this is m plus 1. Okay. Now the thing is that at start both is empty. The pattern itself is empty and the string itself is empty. So what we need to do is that, can we make this as true or not? Okay. So before that, actually, I forgot to tell you what we eventually need is that we need the bottom value of this DP, right? Because we just need to know if this given pattern matches this string or not, and that can be, we do not need the count, the number of pattern count in which this given string can be represented. We just need the, because there might be multiple possibilities, right? As I showed you in this, right? There can be different possibilities. So we do not need to consider any different possibilities. That's the first thing. So even in DP question, right, there is a confusion, right? Should we start with a number? Like in LCS based question, you might see that in that scenario, we always start with plus 1 minus plus 1 plus 1, right? But in this scenario, we just need the value of true and false. That's all. Let's not complicate our life. So now this let's start. So in this one, the pattern is empty and the string is empty. So can you represent this? This box represent that? Can I represent DP of 0, 0? I will be like, yes. It means, so DP of I, j, let's talk about it. The DP of I, j means that, can you represent the first I characters of string with first j characters of pattern? So this is what DP of I, j means. And once you have understood that, now what we need to do is that, now it says that with 0 characters of I and 0 characters of point pattern, can we represent this or not? Can it be represented? Obviously, it's true. So that's how we'll return true. Okay? I will write true over here. Now let's say that the string is empty, but there is some pattern. I'll come to that part, but let's talk about this section, right? Now in this section, what you can see is that the pattern is empty, right? And there will be some string values like A, B, star, and dot also. So can you, without any given pattern, like let's say you're not given any pattern, can you represent this? No. So it will just splash fill with false. False. Now what the next thing is that this is another base case which is very important, right? Which is very important to you. Now in this given scenario, we know that the string is empty. Just understand the string is empty at this point because we are filling the row 0 at this point. Now it means that given a pattern, so once a pattern will start appearing, given a pattern, can you start representing the empty string using that pattern or not? Eventually यही मतलब बन रहा है ना इसका. तो just think about it. When is the time we can represent an empty string using a pattern? Yep, you got it right. If you thought about the star based approach, तो जब भी एक star आ गया इधर, let's say that there is a character which appeared over here. CH is the character which appeared over here, and after that there is a star. That means कि collectively I can assume this CH star as zero, and I can fill true over here. Think about it. We can eventually fill true because think about it. Logically भी आप सोचोगे तो A star can represent an empty string because A star को zero पर count करो. That's what the question says कि match zero or more of the preceding elements. So that's what we are doing. Now let's move ahead. ठीक है? And I'll show you in the code how will we eventually implement that. But let's move to the good part of the code. ठीक है? Now let's say I will just okay, let's draw a new one. Now let's talk about filling the core. Let's talk about filling the core part of the DP, not chindi mindi. So this part, like A, let's say that this was A, this is the pattern, right? And this is my this one. Okay, so यहाँ पे characters are matching. ठीक है? So what will be the value at this point? This will be true, right? At the end we know that, right? We can represent if the characters are matching. What we need to do is that we just need to check, ठीक है, if the characters values are matching. What you do in the LCS based approach, you just copied you realize on the values of this thing. If this was true, we can also represent this as true, right? That's what we are going to do. If there is any pattern which is matching, we take the previous state at the diagonal state and we just copy it over here if the characters are matching. Let's say that if this was false, then also we'll mark this as false even though the characters are matching. I'll tell you why. Because it might be possible. Let's think that this is a part of the smaller 2D vector, and if let's say that there was some another big vector like this, okay, and at this point at some mismatch has happened. So you have to that mismatch. Let's say that the first I characters. Okay, I'll explain you like this. It's think so more better. I had told you that key this will be represented by false, okay, or true based on this value of the I minus 1 and j minus 1. But why we are interested in I minus 1 and j minus 1? Try to understand it. What we are saying is that if first I character matches j character, that's what dp of I comma j represent. But what about this? dp always remembers the previous state. What if we had not represented I minus 1 and j minus 1? Right? यहाँ पे अगर false है तो obviously बात है कि यहाँ पे भी false हो जाएगा ना. It doesn't matter if the characters are matching or not. So that is one thing which you need to remember. Now this is simple, right? And what if the characters are like let's say that instead of character there was in the pattern there was a star, right? Even in that case the characters are matching. So the dot matches A, right? So eventually what you will fill over here? Eventually you might fill based on the value of this given, right? If this was true you would simply fill true. So वहां पे base clear हो गया, ठीक है? I just show you the code how it will look like. So in the code it looks like something like this, ठीक है? It just means that if the current characters are matching or if the current pattern is dot, what we are saying is कि diagonal element का value copy paste कर दो, ठीक है? क्योंकि we are interested in solving the dp of I comma j and I comma j represent on some previous state, and only if the previous state is true then we will set it as true, otherwise we will set it to false. Clear enough? Now let's take some more. We have talked about star dot, but we have not talked about star. The star is the star of this game actually, which changes the whole perception. Now note here, यहाँ पे I told you कि यहाँ पे जो वैल्यू है ये ट्रू कब होगा, जब यहाँ पे कोई कैरेक्टर होगा, यहाँ पे स्टार होगा. ओनली इन दैट सिनेरियो both the ch star will represent an empty, something empty, right? So that's what we need to do. That's how we are representing a star. So again, what eventually can happen is that I'll show you with the good example. Let's say that not this one. We'll come to that. But eventually, whenever there is a star encountered, let's say that, what can happen is that, let's say that this is a pattern, right? Yep, this is the pattern, and I represented a star, and this is A. So this thing about here, and this is an empty string. Okay. Now what can happen is that once we reach here, this will be true, this will be true. Okay. Now think about this dp of, let's say that you have arrived here at I comma j was here at this point. Now what this is saying, can A star represent A? Okay, let's fill this one. All this will be false, right? Right, this will be false, this will be false. I might use some different color, okay, for your. And so यहाँ पे it means कि A does not match the empty string, right? So will false. And यहाँ पे भी the pattern is empty, but there is some character value here which is eventually result to false. Now here A are matching. So will, I told you, based on the previous state, will fill it as true, because eventually अगर आप ध्यान से सोचोगे A will match the pattern A, right? अगर इतना ही होता, not considering this star and not considering this A. That's what DP means in actual life. So let's talk about here when we arrived at I comma j. Let's say I comma j was here. So ideally आप देखोगे, think about it. A star should be true. This should be true because A star will eventually represent A. Think about it. But how will it will represent A star? Like on what basis I will fill it to true over here? Obviously not based on this value. Yep. So take some time, think about it. So you will fill this true based on this previous state. What we will think is that, let's try removing this particular A. And let's say that given an empty string, can we represent A or not? Given an empty string, can we empty string and A star pattern, can we match this or not? If the answer was true, there is a possibility here also that we can represent it, right? Because A star matlab kya? Ki we can represent it with multiple A's. So that's what it is happening. Yep, you got it right? Because this state we will not check. Understand the fact. We will not check the neighboring state. We will check the above one, right? Because if we had consumed 0 over here, there is a possibility to also consume 1 over here. And there is also a possibility to consume 2 over here. ये सारे possibilities भी आएंगे. And we just have to fill true and false based on that, right? So eventually your solution will look like something like this. As I had said, ki this initialization you have to do m+1 and n+1. After that, I had showed you that you have to fill up the base case. The 0,0 will be true. After that, I told you that how do you handle the pattern one, right? When you're filling the row. Now at the next is that we do iteration like any other DP. We do not do any fancy, like 1 to m and 1 to n. We just start iterating. And if both the character had matched, और if the current pattern is star, what we will do is that जो उसका previous state है, जो उसका previous state था इस point पे, we'll just copy paste from the I-1 and J-1. ठीक है? और what we can do is that, otherwise हमें क्या मिला रहेगा? एक star मिला रहेगा. ठीक है? अगर हमें एक star case मिल गया, which is the star of this movie, what might eventually happen is that there is 2 ways to fill a star. ठीक है? Either you can fill via this, अगर क्योंकि ये वाला approach क्या बोल रहा है कि let's ignore this approach says that when you look at the j-2 row, this approach says that we are discarding A star, and that's how we are building this. So if this was true over here, this would eventually become true, but यहाँ पे false है, तो this does not matter. We cannot get a value false over here. You also know that because A star can represent A, but how will it represent A star? Yep, it will represent A star based on the top J value. क्योंकि यहाँ पे हमने क्या किया कि A star को हमने बोला कि will consume it 0 times. But now यहाँ पे we can consume it more than one time also, right? So it all depends upon the previous top column approach before we start filling it up. I will show you another example also. This is a very good example to show how this works. Now let's say that you have a complex pattern ABC, and this is string, and the pattern is A star, B star, and D. Okay. Now initially, you know how this got filled. A star can represent an empty string. That's why this is a tick mark over here. A star B cannot, because B आ गया है, एक B extra character है. We cannot represent an empty string using that. So as clear as that. ठीक है. I think so. This part is clear how we are filling the rows and columns of the 0th index and the 0th column. The main problem is whenever there is a character mismatch, like AB यहाँ पे हम AB character is not this B character, right? We have a B character over here, and this B character does not match the A character, so that's we will fill X. ठीक है. The ChatGPT has not done a very good job. यहाँ पे सिर्फ B आना चाहिए था, यहाँ पे सिर्फ C आना चाहिए था, but okay. Stay with me if you are able to understand this part. But anyways, my point is that कि this B now यहाँ ये वाली interesting कहानी है ना, यहाँ पे B star आ गया. या B star, what can happen is that B star ठीक है, this time we consumed 0 times. Based on this, we told that B star will consume 0 times. But there is also possible, यहाँ पे A आया, and we know that again we have the possibility that B star can be again be consumed 0 time, like here, because यहाँ पे B star को अगर तुम इग्नोर करोगे तो यहाँ से भी ट्रू आएगा. ठीक है, यहाँ से भी ट्रू आएगा. बट एक ट्रू यहाँ से भी आएगा ना कि बी स्टार को हम एक एम्प्टी स्ट्रिंग रिप्रेजेंट करना है, तो हम इन सबको जीरो कर दें, 0 0, तो इससे भी ट्रू आएगा. ठीक है, इट डज नॉट मैटर, हमें बस ट्रू और फॉल्स से मतलब है, और हमें देखना है कि एट द एंड ये ट्रू है कि फॉल्स है. ठीक है. एंड अब ए बी आया. अब तुम बोलोगे कि यार भैया आपने बी को कैसे फिर से इंक्लूड कर दिया. सो आई एम टेलिंग यू देयर इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी दैट बी कैन बी यूज्ड मोर टाइम्स. सो वी विल रिलाई ऑन दिस कॉलम. We'll rely on the previous state. We'll say that can the string A be represented using A star B star? If yes, and if it can be represented, क्योंकि इस गिवन सिनेरियो में आप ये भी सोचना कि B कैरेक्टर और B कैरेक्टर, इसका हम क्या देख रहे हैं कि यहाँ पे एक चीज का ध्यान रखना तुम. ठीक है, यहाँ पे जो प्रीवियस कैरेक्टर है वो J-2 है. ठीक है, J-2 है. ये पैटर्न की बात कर रहा हूं मैं, पैटर्न. तो यहाँ पे J-2 अपना B रिप्रेजेंट करेगा. ठीक है, J-2 B रिप्रेजेंट करेगा. एंड उसमें क्या होगा, जो प्रीवियस कैरेक्टर है हम उसको करंट कैरेक्टर से चेक करेंगे. ठीक है, अगर करंट कैरेक्टर से इक्वल नहीं, मतलब मान के चल लो कि अनइक्वल आ गया, तो तुम्हारा वही केस बन गया ना फिर. तो दोबारा सा जो तुम्हारा 20 केस था इधर, इवेंचुअली तो क्या हो जाएगा फिर. यू नीड टू फिगर आउट दैट okay, this case I will come to you later, but eventually what can happen is that we can discard this string whenever there is a previous character mismatch. If there is a star encountered, okay, you got my point, right? Whenever there is a star encountered, either you can rely on the previous state or the J-2 state or the I-1 wala state. This is only possible if the characters are matching. Now what about the state when the characters are not matching? Like when the characters are not matching, तो हम क्या कर सकते हैं, सिंपली डिस्कार्ड करके देख सकते हैं ना. बोलने का मतलब कि अगर हमने इधर आ गए, ठीक है, हमने देखा कि ए स्टार है, यहाँ पे पैटर्न ए स्टार है और यहाँ पे आया कुछ बी. सो यहाँ पे क्या मतलब है कि वी आर सिंपली डूइंग अ डिस्कार्ड जॉब. कि कैन वी डिस्कार्ड, पहले तो ए और ए ये दोनों ये मिसमैच हो जाएंगे. ठीक है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे J-2 ये रिप्रेजेंट करेगा और यहाँ पे तुम्हारा I ये रिप्रेजेंट करेगा. तो यहाँ पे तो पहले मिसमैच आ जाएगा. फिर मिसमैच में हम देखेंगे कि A और B अनइक्वल है, तो क्या हम A स्टार को ये पैटर्न को डिस्कार्ड करके देखें कि काम चलेगा कि नहीं चलेगा. दैट्स व्हाट इवेंचुअली इज हैपनिंग. वी विल डिस्कार्ड A स्टार एंड स्टिल सी दैट कैन वी रिप्रेजेंट द गिवन पैटर्न, can we represent the remaining J-2 characters of the pattern with this string or not? If yes, then we'll write it true over here. And exactly code में भी यही हो रहा है कि if the अगर स्टार भी डिटेक्ट हुआ और अगर पैटर्न मैच नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो हम देखेंगे कि क्या हम ओवरऑल डिस्कार्ड कर सकते हैं कि नहीं कर सकते. डिस्कार्ड करने का तरीका है J-2 और J-2 को. ठीक है, और अगर पैटर्न इक्वल है तो फिर ये वाला कंडीशन आ जाएगा तुम्हारा कि you have two possibility. Either you can take this one or the top one. I hope you are able to understand the solution. So thank you guys. Have a good day.